What's up, YouTube? Today I want to cover a video on how to basically zero your optic or your rifle scope on your rifle. I've been to the range quite a few times and seen guys really struggling with it, and I don't really think they got the concept of exactly what they need to do. And I just kind of want to cover the basics to help guys out there. Hopefully this video could help you if you kind of struggle, or at least show you the little easier way to go about it to get your rifle zeroed. So basically, this rifle here, this is just a 223 rifle. This is a Savage Axis actually, and this thing shoots lights out. I mean, this thing's incredibly accurate with hand loads, and I'll show you a target a little later in the video. But basically, how you want to go about it, once you get your rifle scope mounted, all that does is it just gets it on there. This thing could be way off, you know, it could be 4 feet right or something at 100 yards. So it's kind of hard once you go out there and you try to get on paper. And if your first shot isn't on paper, you don't know where to go. You know, if it's too low, right, left, whatever. Sometimes you can't see the backsplash, you know, even with a spotter to help you make your adjustments. So one of the easiest ways I've found is basically you just have to get the rifle stationary. It has to be completely set down somewhere with no movement. And how I usually do it is I'll put the front bipod down. If you don't have a bipod on your gun, a lot of ranges have blocks with carpet on it or something, you know, some kind of shooting deal to help you with the rest. Some way you get the front of the rifle stationary, either on a block, bag, bipod, something like that, and get the rear stationary. And what you'll do is you'll actually pull the bolt, look down the bore. This pretty much only works on bolt guns, you know, something you have access that you can clearly see through the bore in the gun or whatever. And you'll put if you're doing it at 100 yards, you can do it at 25 yards. It really doesn't matter. The closer to 100 though you can do or get to is more accurate. But what you'll do is you'll basically bag the back of this rifle, or you'll somehow get it, like I said, locked in place, aimed in at your target. So if you're shooting, you know, a target down range 100 yards, you'll look through here and you'll make adjustments until you see that target centered in the bore of the gun. And then once that's centered in the bore of the gun, now you can come up and look through your optic without moving the gun. That's the key, is to get the gun stationary. Then you'll look through your optic and you'll basically make adjustments on your scope until that crosshair's on the center of that target that the bore's looking through. So like I said, once that's basically bore sighting it, and I found it to be the most accurate way, because a lot of times even when you haven't done it at the shop or something with a bore sighter, it's not as accurate as this, you know, this way is. But the key to it is getting the rifle not to move, because the rifle can't move from the time you look through here, get it lined up, and then look through your optic and make your adjustments. So if you can do that, if you can get that rifle stationary, then it'll get you on paper at least. I mean, it's not going to be 100% accurate, you know, exactly hit where you're going to hit, but it's going to be pretty close. It's at least going to get you on paper. So once you're on paper, that's the key. That's the easiest way to get on paper. Once you're on paper, what you need to know is how your scope works. And basically, you know, you'll have an elevation and a windage knob. Most scopes or whatever are in quarter MOA clicks. Some are in mils. What I'll cover right now, just for ease or sake of explaining, or easier way to explain it, is quarter MOA. So what MOA is basically minute of angle, and it's basically equates to 100 yards. So if you're shooting 100 yards, that should move you a quarter of an inch every click at 100 yards, whichever direction you move it. And when you go to sight in, you always take the same point of aim. So that means if you're aiming at the center of the target and you hit low left, you don't compensate and move your point of aim high right to get it to, you know, get it on target. You always take the same point of aim. So your center of the target, bang, you shoot, you know, 4 inches low and about 3 inches left. Okay, take another shot, because you have to pair at least 2 rounds together. And what that does is it takes, you know, shooter air out of it, because if you take one shot, bang, you might have pulled that. You know, just say on the off chance it was actually zeroed, you pulled that round, it shot, you know, low left, and then you compensated for it. So you know, did your adjustments, bang, and you shot it, and you had a good trigger squeeze. Now you're high right. So you can continuously chase your tail out there, and I see this happen a lot at the ranges. I don't know if guys just are wanting to conserve ammo, or they just don't really get the concept of that. But you have to shoot 2 and group them together. Now if you shoot 2 and one's here and one's here, that's obviously not going to do you any good, because that rifle should repeat at least, somewhere, an inch, inch and a half group, somewhere even. If you can't get an inch group, of 2 rounds together, it's really kind of pointless to make adjustments at that point. Then you kind of got a basic on your, the fundamentals. Check the bore, make sure if you're running like a surplus rifle or something that it's just not all clapped out and the rifling's gone or something in it. But you got to have at least two rounds close together to basically measure your adjustment from. So if I take a shot, I'm at 100 yards, I do everything right, control my breathing, squeeze, bang, and I shoot low left. Okay, I chamber another round, do everything right, hold my breath, squeeze, bang, I'm low left. So I got 2 grouped together. Now what do I do? Okay, if you're running quarter MOA, you can, if you're running a grid pattern, if you've seen those targets that have all the little squares, those are usually 1 inch squares. And they're 1 inch for a reason, because you can measure off those. So if you can either look down your optic and count how many blocks over you are and how many blocks low or high or wherever it is, count the blocks over, it gives you your inches. So what you equate that to is 4 of these clicks in quarter MOA gives you 1 inch at 100 yards. So to kind of reference that, I drew this handy dandy little chart here. So if I take a shot, and forgive me, this is really crude. If I take a shot, I'm aiming here. Take a shot, I hit here. I take another shot, still aiming here, I hit here. And if we're going to say these are inch, just for sake of explaining here, these are inch grids. So if I hit here, I know basically I'll take the difference in between the two, because you're basically just kind of average it to get it to start your adjustment. So if I hit here in between the two, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 will get me in that, somewhere in that bullseye. So if I got to make 4 MOA, 4 inches up, so I got to do 4, basically here I got to go 4, 8, 12, 16 clicks. So I'll make 16 clicks in the up position. So your turrets either are marked up or up and down, but it'll give you either up or up and down. So I want to move that up, because what that scope is telling you is you're going to move point of impact. So point of impact needs to come up. So that's what I think a lot of guys get confused on too, is they think they got to move their reticle, or they're basically down to your point of hit, your point of impact. You don't. You remain consistent in your point of aim, and you move bullet impact to where you need it. So I would take 16 clicks up, and if you count these, we're about half here, but you go 1, 2, 3, and basically a half, and you got half here, so that's 4. So I'd take another 16 clicks, and I'd move that right, because we're shooting left of the target. So we're going to move this. This is always what we're concentrating on moving when we're making adjustments on our scope. So 16 up, 16 right would be the input I'd want to put in that scope. And like I said, you can do that with those grid pattern scopes. You can usually see the grids with your optic. If your optic doesn't have enough magnification, or you don't have a spotting scope or something like that, you might need to take a trek down there to the target so you can see and get an accurate measurement of where you need to go. And if your scope is halfway calibrated as far as what it should, if it's giving you a true reading every click, that should be pretty close. And then you can fine tune it. If you're just on the edge of the bullseye or something like that, and you put 2 right at the edge, okay, then you need to come over, maybe 1/4 inch, maybe 1/2 inch, 1 or 2 clicks. But that's going to save you some time, save you some ammo, and hopefully some confusion. But like I said, scopes are always set up, or at least the ones I've always ran, are always point of impact shifts. So don't think you're going to move your reticle to where you hit. You move where you hit to where you're aiming. So I aim here, I hit here. I got to come up and I got to come right. So up, right to move it in there. So if I hit over here, then I'm got to come up and I got to come left. If I hit up here, I got to come down and I got to come left. So always just remember that. If you can kind of ingrain that in, you're moving point of impact to your point of aim. Never do a Kentucky windage, take a shot on low left, and compensate for it. You always aim in the same spot, as close as you can. I mean, you try to be exact same spot every time you squeeze the trigger, and you always want to group 2 to confirm that you've done it right. So if you have a wild trigger pull or whatever, you happen to jerk one kind of comes off your shoulder a little bit, and it's a wild round, don't count it. Fire another round, because you always want them to do 2, because you can't compensate for a wild trigger pull or bad trigger discipline or whatever you happen to be breathing in and it lowered the barrel and it shot low, and then you compensate for it the next time you don't, it's going to be all over. So always put two together and then make your adjustment. So like I said, hopefully that kind of helps a little bit. You know, some guys struggling or whatever might see that. And some of the newer scopes, or not even so much the higher end scopes anymore, it has a return to zero feature. So what that means is once you get everything dialed in, you get everything turned, and your rifle shooting point of aim, your point of impact is together at 100 yards, then without clicking the turrets, you basically hold the turrets, this particular model, you hold the turrets, you unscrew this right here, but you can't just grab it and start turning it, because you're going to turn your turrets and it's going to throw you off. So just, you know, recall what number you're on. You know, if you're on 7, 8, 9, whatever, hold it, pop that loose, unscrew it, pull this cap straight off, turn it to 0, put it back on, tighten your cap, and now you've zeroed that. So now if you ever want to go out and you got to put some elevation in it or whatever, if you're shooting farther, you know, as you go advanced and start shooting a little farther, you have a 0 to go back to. So you can go up, you can go down, whatever. We usually go up, but you can go up and then come back to 0, your original 100-yard 0, because that's the most important setup on your scope, is your 100-yard 0, and that's always got to be true to go anywhere else, to go any farther, you know, shoot any more distance, whatever. And then once you bag it up, you want it to be back to 0 before you put it back, you know, bring it back home, so you know, if you go out hunting or whatever it is, that you're back to 0. You're not back out at 250 yards or whatever drop compensation you put in there. So always, like I said, 0 your turrets if it's possible. Some aren't. I know the Leopold, like VX Mark 1s, or VX 1s, VX2s I don't think are. They may be, but I know the VX 1s aren't. They're not zerable. So once you, or resettable. So once you establish your 0, it might be on 9 or you know, wherever, but that's fine. Cap it and then you're done. And you got your 100-yard 0. So hopefully that helps, guys. Mills is a little different. It just requires, it does the same way. The measurements are just a little different. They're 0.36 of an inch at 100 yards movement, because a mill is 3.6 inches at 100 meters. But I shoot in MOAs just because, you know, it's easier for me to calculate yardage. The metric system's a little difficult for me as far as just off the fly math. You know, dealing with quarter inch 0.25 instead of dealing with 0.36. Just easier math doing in my head. So anyways, guys, I hope that helps. Hope that saves you some time at the range next time, especially if you're getting ready for hunting season or whatever. You know, you have an easier time zeroing your rifle and you waste less ammo. You're not constantly chasing a bad trigger pull and making adjustments and compensate for it. So anyways, just wanted to cover that, guys, and like I said, hopefully it helps you out. All right, thanks for watching.